now talk about money teams, the teams which should be among the favorites. As we look at the pots, we talked about the pot system. You have 4 pots, and they're going to take those pots, the teams in the pots, and then distribute them amongst the groups. And when we look at, say, pot number 2, that is known as probably the second tier of teams because these are based on world rankings. But there are some teams in here that you are really high on. Which ones would those be?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Look, you cannot sleep on Morocco.
Yep.
That's going to be one that would surprise a lot of people. You have Colombia, Uruguay, Japan. Look, listen, this is why these groups become so difficult because let's say you are the U.S. and then you end up getting a Japan and then you get a Paraguay and then you're going to go against Ghana. So what happens is now you have Japan, who's a team that's very tactical. They love passing the ball. They're speedy. They're guys that are maybe not very big, but they have speed and very tactical. So they pass the ball very well. Now you have Paraguay, who, man, look, they have to qualify out of CONMEBOL, which is the Confederation of South America. And you're talking about a team that goes up against Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia, one of the, some of these biggest teams.
So they're tested. They're battle tested.
Exactly, yes. And then Ghana, I mean, you're talking about guys that are strong, physical, tall. These guys don't get tired. They play the full 90 minutes at a full speed. So it becomes very, very difficult. This is the interesting part about the draw because now you get to see how your group match or your group stage is going to shape up.
And it's interesting. We look at pot 1 right here as the pot with the best teams. But when you look at the FIFA World Rankings, take Croatia right here. Mm-hmm. Croatia is 10th. In the rankings. Morocco is 11th. And then there is one team that's in the top 15 that's not even on this board because that country hasn't even qualified yet, that being Italy.
Yeah, no, and listen, this is a so interesting story, surprising, because now Italy, for the 3rd consecutive World Cup cycle, is on to the playoff. They haven't qualified to the World Cup in the last 2 editions. So it's a very critical time, crucial time for Italy because they have won the World Cup 4 times in their history. They're right behind Brazil. They're the 2nd most winningest country, and since winning it back in 2006, they haven't. Their fall off has to be studied because now Italy is suffering, man. And so it's going to be, they're in the playoff and we'll see if they end up making it.
And we talked about the draw and the team is being chosen from these pots. How it's going to work is this. Basically, they will take the teams from pot 1. So you're going to see all of these teams right here. All of these teams will be picked. And once they're done, then they will go to pot 2. And then when pot 2 is done, they'll go to pot 3, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, you'll see 1, 2, 3, and 4 with these teams all being, as we mentioned earlier, Luis talked about, these being the group leaders in those groups. And then you will have 4 teams in each group, and that's when the fun starts.
Yes, and the reason why it's done that way is because that way you get one of the best teams in each group. Then you get, let's say, like a B tier team, a C tier team, and go on, to the D tier team. Where that way there's parity. It tries to make it even, but there's always that one group, the group of death,
yes,
which becomes the most tough one out of the whole tournament.
And that will be fascinating because when you look at last year, the last World Cup, I should say, the last World Cup, I think most of the experts would consider that Group E, which was Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, and Japan, that was the group of death.
You remember I mentioned Japan, right?
Yep.
So Spain, Germany, Japan, and then Costa Rica. Yeah, Costa Rica coming out of CONCACAF, which competes with Mexico, U.S., Canada, over here in Central and North America. Look, that was definitely the group of death. I mean, when you talk about you have 2 European teams and Japan in there, yeah, that's a tough one.
And there is one group here, one team in pot 3, right here. This is Saudi Arabia. Yeah. There's a pretty unique story about Saudi Arabia in the last World Cup. I keep saying last year like this happens every year, but I think sometimes that bias of American sports. Saudi Arabia was in the same group as Argentina, Mexico, and Poland, and guess who won?
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, little Saudi Arabia, knocked off Argentina in Argentina's first match. Now, That's why you have this group system, because it wasn't the only game. It was not like the NCAA tournament, as we all know, one and done. Argentina was obviously able to rally and then go on to the next stage and the next before ultimately winning. But this idea of perhaps watering down the tournament, it's probably true to a
certain
degree.
extent, yeah.
But listen, that's why we love events like this, because a team from pot 3 can beat a team in pot 1 early on in the group stage.
Definitely. No, it can happen. And also what it can also happen is that you're able to bounce back. As you mentioned, Argentina was able to pull it off. They were able to bounce back and go on and advance and ultimately win the entire tournament, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see which of these small countries can be that dark horse, the black horse, right? That the one that surprises everybody, the one that the Cinderella story, as we mentioned it in the March Madness tournament. So, can any of these small countries make a deep run? We'll see.
All right, so we have also looked at some of the favorites in this event. We will get to those later. So that's what we're saying here in the studio. Now let's send it back to our team in Sugarland, guys.
Hey, do you mind, can we ask if you personally, as we listen to our fans back here, do you, either of you, have a favorite that you'd be willing to say that you're really rooting for in this?
Well, I would defer to our expert right here.
Listen, I think, look, you have a few favorites. One of them is going to be Spain. Another one will be France. Argentina, I think it's one that you can never count out just because they have Lionel Messi, who's arguably one of the, if not the GOAT, up there. There's Cristiano Ronaldo fans and Lionel Messi fans. They're going to go back and forth of who's the GOAT, right? The greatest of all time. Look, Brazil, they have so much talent, but they've always kind of let down in the recent years. After they won it back in 2002, Brazil has so much talent, and then they just kind of let you down because they don't make that deep run. But for me, I think Spain, France, and maybe even Portugal. Portugal has a very, very good team. For the first time, they have more of a well-balanced team, and it's not just Cristiano Ronaldo leading the pack. And this is his final chance. Ronaldo, if he wants to solidify his career with, not that he needs any more trophies.
He's still a GOAT.
Yeah, because he's done it all. And he's close to scoring 1,000 goals, which nobody has ever done in a career. This is the cherry on top. He needs the World Cup in order to go ahead and match Messi with a World Cup. He's only won it once. Ronaldo hasn't won it yet. And then you can say, okay, these two guys, it doesn't matter who you think is the GOAT. They're both the GOATs.
So here's some perspective as well, Jacob. When you're looking at Luis's favorites here, Spain is number 1 in the FIFA rankings. Argentina is number 2. France is 3. You had Brazil as well. So Brazil is 5 in the current rankings, and Portugal is 6. So
we're talking top 5, top 6 teams.
Top 5, top 6. He's really not going out on a limb, but that's how this tournament typically plays out because you're playing so many games. It's not one and done, unlike a lot of the tournaments that we're used to.
See, also the thing is, though, if you want me to choose one, I will. Also, it's who do I want to win as a soccer fan, and then who I think is going to win. Who I think will win it, I'm going to go with Spain. I think Spain will be the winner.
Okay, let me clear that.
So Spain.
I think Spain will end up being the winner. Who I want it to win is Portugal, just because I want Cristiano Ronaldo to get his World Cup trophy.
Well, we're just 30 minutes into this thing, and we've already given you the winner.